Welcome to A Practical Guide to Investigations in the Real World. This is the second in a series of 4 podcasts produced by RealWorldHR. This series covers the subject of investigations in the workplace and has been developed using the knowledge and real-life experiences of team members from RealWorldHR who have worked in many areas of industry within roles such as HR professionals, managers, and officials within the trade unions. We hope you find our podcasts informative and thought-provoking as we strive to share what we consider are points of best practice within the subject area. Our podcasts are time efficient and portable, which will allow for you to learn on the go and be able to listen to them when you want and where you want. They are brief and so will enable you to fit them into a busy working life whilst being able to promote self-development. Part 2, Investigation Series. A Practical Guide to Investigations in the Real World. In this podcast, we will cover some of the practical aspects and actions that you, as an appointed investigator for an internal workplace investigation, will want to consider. So, why has the requirement to carry out an investigation landed on your desk? It could be that as a line manager, a complaint or allegation has been made by a member of staff to you directly, or that your employer has asked you to carry out an investigation on behalf of the organisation or business. Either way, your involvement has now commenced, and you need to ensure that the correct policy and procedure are followed, and those that need to be informed of the investigation are done so in a timely manner. It is vitally important right from the outset that you keep an accurate record of your actions and any details that will be relevant to the investigation. If you are an organisation or business with a HR department, it would be beneficial to make contact with the relevant personnel if they're not already aware of the situation, and agree who will provide you with any HR advice and support you may need during the course of your investigation. From the outset, consider the nature of the allegation, incident or event you're being asked to investigate and determine under which policy you should deal with this. This can be determined by an initial consideration of the nature of the issue, or indeed may be as simple as an employee coming to you as their line manager to raise a grievance. You will also need to consider you are in a position to carry out the investigation. That could be ensuring that you are in no way implicated in the issue, for example as a witness to the event, and also that you're impartial to the parties involved. Could also be something as practical as that you are not due to take a period of leave, which would delay the start of the process. If these examples or a similar example apply to you, then you must make your employer aware of this for them to decide if you are to carry on with the investigation or if someone else in the organisation will be appointed in your place. So, if there is no practical reason for you not to carry out the investigation, what are your next steps? It doesn't matter if it's a complaint, an allegation, or the investigation has been triggered as part of a policy. Firstly, take the time to obtain the relevant policy and make the time to sit down and read it. We often think we know what we're doing, but a simple review of a policy will refresh your memory and hopefully you'll avoid making basic mistakes which you could so easily avoid. By reviewing the policy, this should allow you as the investigator to start to set a timeline for yourself, which is important as the chances are that this investigation will be given to you in addition to your normal daily work. Without a plan, it's easy to allow things to slip because of pressures from elsewhere. The starting point of the investigation is to try and ascertain the basic facts of the investigation, and certainly in investigations that involve people issues, this will be achieved by speaking to those involved, usually within an interview setting. You will need to ensure that any policy actions that are required to be carried out are done so before the interviews take place. This could be, for example, that in a discipline scenario, the individual has been informed that they are under investigation, and they are advised of the policy and where they can seek advice or assistance, and also their rights within the policy. Next, you need to determine where the interview will take place. Again, the nature of the issue you're dealing with may dictate this. On a matter of performance or absence management, it may be acceptable to conduct the interview within the workplace during normal working hours, whereas in the case of a complaint of bullying, a larger degree of confidentiality may be needed to protect all parties and conducting the interview at a different location may be appropriate. Whatever you decide is appropriate, check that it's also private and that the interview can go ahead uninterrupted. Remember to consider any facilities you will need and any special arrangements that the individuals that are being interviewed may need. With regards to note-taking, will you have anyone with you for this? Maybe a member of HR or another note-taker could be accompanying you. Somebody to take notes can certainly be helpful. It's difficult to actively listen to what you're being told and have to take and record verbatim at the same time. Having to do this can not only interrupt the flow of the interview, but also your thought process and any questions you may want to ask. Therefore, if it's feasible and possible to have another note taker, this would help. The recording of interviews and how that happens differs from workplace to workplace, and that will also need to be a consideration. Certainly, if you use audio recording as part of your procedures, make sure before the start of the interview that the equipment works, and that the individuals understand the purpose of the recording and what will happen with the recording post-investigation. When conducting your interview, it is important that all involved know who is in attendance and their reasons for being there. You can also use this introduction as a means of putting everyone at ease. Any interview can be stressful, and whilst there is a need to ensure the interview is formal, it can still be conducted in a manner that will ensure it's open, honest, and that it will assist in getting to the crux of the information or finding the evidence that you're looking for. How you will conduct your interview is often fashioned by your natural traits. You should have been trained to carry out interviews by your employer. An ability to communicate well and to keep an open mind to the evidence put in front of you is vital in achieving your goal of carrying out a thorough and comprehensive investigation. If you haven't been trained in interviewing techniques, then you should discuss this with your employer. If you are the employer, consider this as an essential part of your development as soon as possible. From any initial information given to you, you may have already formulated some questions you want to ask. When you ask the questions is again your choice, but a good method of starting the whole process is to allow the person being interviewed to explain in their own words what has happened, what is their issue, or complaint, or allegation, before you ask any questions. Whilst they're doing this, you can listen and also take notes of questions and points of clarification you will want to revisit. Explain to the person being interviewed that this is what you want to do, and you will then go back over the issue and put together a formal record of the relevant points. This will hopefully enable you to see the whole situation clearly and not get sidetracked in the small details. You'll be able to separate the points that will form the basis of the investigation from what may be a lot of background but not relevant information. Again, this approach also helps put those being interviewed at ease. As an investigator, your role is to find the evidence that supports the version of events being given to you by the person you're interviewing. It is also important to know where you can find confirmation or validation of this version of events. This may be that you will have physical evidence to examine, or you may want to visit the location where the event is alleged to have taken place. You will need to interview witnesses to the issue and question them to see if their version of events is similar or corroborates to the version already given to you. Often, those making the complaint or allegation will have the names of witnesses, as will the person who the allegation is about. All parties need an equal opportunity to put their views and versions of events to you, and also to offer their evidence. You must keep an open mind and not take sides or draw opinions based on one side or the other, but on the evidence present. Don't worry if you've completed an interview and then realise at a later date that there are other questions you wish to ask, as you can arrange to go back and revisit these with the person involved. It is very important at the end of the interview to ask the open question, is there anything else you would like to add? Many times the answer will be no, but occasionally the process of the interview itself may prompt individuals to offer further information that may or may not turn out to be relevant. As an investigator, it's important to remind all involved of the need for confidentiality to be maintained whilst the investigation is ongoing, and also to advise them of what the next steps will be, and the time frame in which you hope to achieve it. Your initial interviews as the investigator are likely to be the most challenging, as you will be able to prepare more for the subsequent interviews by preparing a list of questions you think are relevant, and where you want to clarify and corroborate the information you have. So the role of the investigator is to carry out an investigation to find evidence, but just as important, it is also to test that evidence to ensure it's valid, current, and consistent. Remember, the key to a quality and comprehensive investigation is to appoint well-trained and competent investigators. So, when was the last time you reviewed your training program or ensured that your investigative skills were being maintained? Thank you for taking the time to listen to this short podcast in the series. We hope you found it useful and informative. The next podcast will cover the issue of investigations and the link to policy and procedures. If you require any further information regarding this podcast, or would like any further advice or training, please visit our website www.realworldhr.co.uk, where you can find contact details. This podcast will be available on the website as a free resource for future use.